All right, we're getting into something a little different. Eric's gonna tell you what we're up to, but I'll show you something real quick. Eric, what are we getting into?
New Trek factory store. You know, being that we're into gravel, I have a buddy who's interested in the new Trek Checkmate, which is their more race slanted bike, but they just got the Checkpoint, so why not do a comparison before these things start hitting retail space, right? I don't know, we'll see what's up.
Shout out Trek over here in Reno that just opened. They're gonna come let us poke around at these new bikes. Let's do it.
And I just figured.
First thoughts on the speckle.
Yeah, kind of an understated paint job. I know it's been mixed reaction from the community on that one, but it looks, you know, gravel bikes get dirty, so it could look good dirty. Thoroughbred race bike, kind of like the Factor Austro Gravel, Ridley Conzo Fast, 3T, Race Max, kind of in that vein, right? Aero, yeah, looks cool, looks light. Got you.
I mean, right off the bat, it is stupid light. That is for sure. The integrated handlebar one piece is cool and not cool. They went for an aero design here, but I do not like that they went back to a traditional round here. So you kind of lose all the comfort you would in a cockpit like that. And being that it's routed in like that, it's not something you can change easy. Those are some tiny, tiny tires. I'm looking at that tire like that's a road bike tire. That is so small. Can I have this with 2.2s, please?
We're waiting for the day, right? You're seeing the R&D trickle down of the time it takes to design a bike versus production. But this gives the racer who would otherwise buy a Factor Austro Gravel or something like that, a Pinarello Gravel, something to work with. Fresh off the press. A lot of stores don't even have this thing yet.
Yeah, I don't think this is ours either. I think it's.
Oh, dude, this is actually lighter than I thought it would be, bro. That's not heavy. I thought it'd be a chunker. It's size 58 with a bag on it. That's actually really surprising. Okay.
Okay, weight-wise, obviously different frames compared to that.
Yeah. That bike's a feather for sure. I would believe with SRAM Red that could be in that 16-ish range. I haven't seen claimed weight on a size run of this bike, but upon picking it up directly after this one, that's actually pretty impressive. And this is SRAM Force with their in-house branded carbon wheels, carbon round bar, carbon round stem, with a bag though. And internal storage, not bad. Lighter than I thought it would be. Yeah, then here comes the Checkpoint. Nick finally gets to get his hands on this.
Okay, that's light.
Lighter than it looks.
Okay, for as bulky as it looks, being more the adventure.
That was a surprising thing, especially going directly from the Checkmate, right?
I was not expecting it to be that light. That's actually like totally doable.
At a 58 too.
Yeah, and I have a 58 too. So if you go back down to my size, that's pretty light.
Sub 18, yeah?
That is, yeah, definitely sub 18. And you throw on a better pair of bars or something, there's room to cut down the weight even more on this.
And these are the Barger, if I'm butchering the name, GR Pro carbon lineup round bars, so probably some good damping there. 42s in there.
But my question is, if that's the race bike and this is the adventure bike, why is there no Eagle on the adventure bike?
So I spoke with another Trek dealer about this, and the options you can go is twofold. Or I guess really for Eagle, you can go frame up, which this is the colorway you can get if you order the frame by itself. and it's actually priced pretty aggressively under what most brands will charge for just a frame set. It is T47 threaded, which is going to be celebrated by a lot of riders. But yeah, if you want Eagle, you're gonna have to do the frame up build or buy the bike as it sits, maybe a base model, and swap some things out because SRAM allows you to do that, of course. The base model of the Checkpoint has the same frame throughout the lineup, so you don't have to worry about the whole different carbon. You can just get the same frame no matter which one you ordered.
Okay, so in theory, what they've done this year is made this now more of the adventure. This now is more of the race, and separated this from being the all-arounder.
The Checkpoint is a staple in the gravel community and has been for years. I've never owned one, but it seems like some of the complaints about the old Checkpoint is that it was trying to do too much. So now their solution is to give the roadie or true racers what they want, and then more of the adventure. But adventure's a loose term though. Other bikes like the Giant Revolt is an adventure bike, but that's a great gravel race bike. My impression of this is this kind of reminds me more in that Revolt camp, yeah?
It looks definitely more in the Revolt camp, especially with how high your head tube is. You see how much higher the head tube is compared to this?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is gonna keep you out of the wind, give you that more slammed race position. So this is a 58, this is a 54. Medium and Trek Run, large. So the medium large is kind of the size we're missing in between these guys. Okay, so yeah, the top shelf carbon SLR 800 OCLV, and then you're gonna get your this doesn't have it listed inside. Oh yeah, it does right there. 500 series. So light, not quite as light, maybe less stiff. It's hard to say for sure. I know stiffness is one of those dubious things that people talk about.
I mean, at the end of the day, for your average consumer mid-pack jack with bigger tire clearance, that's almost a better race weapon.
And we're biased because of the sandbox and the mud box and all the other boxes we've played in. But hey, options are nice.
That makes more sense to have the Explorer, being that you can't put the bigger tires on there. That is definitely more race oriented. You want those smaller jumps. Whereas this is like, okay, we're ready to put bags on this. We're ready to put bigger tires on this and go explore. But that 44
not
out here,
enough.
It's definitely not enough.
Yeah.
You're definitely. Okay, one really fun fact that I'm going to point out about the two differences between this bike is the racier version, the Checkmate. Not only does it have the integrated cockpit and the one-piece bar stem and all the cables kind of more tucked in because they go in front of the stem, but the seat post is completely different. The Checkmate has the Damani style, that D-shape seat post, whereas the Checkpoint has just a round. So for proprietary systems, that Checkpoint, at least that's a good move on their part. If you want a more adventure bike, do it all type of bike, at least the Checkpoint, you can change out that seat post.
It has Rival on it too. Last gen Checkpoint, a classic, a staple in the community. Anyone who's been riding or racing gravel for a while, this is right up there in a model to consider. So I think it, you know, definitely owe it to the Checkpoint to look at both side by side, Gen 2, Gen 3. Yeah, different head tube shape, more traditional, more of that older Checkpoint look. This is the last iteration of the last gen, so it still has the tool trap door. It looks like the ISO speed is different. Yeah, that's a different design now. One thing we didn't mention, maybe you did when I was not around, is both these bikes are UDH.
There you go. Yeah, that's important.
UDH, so if you're trying to port over the new transmission, this bike's future-proof, so at least you know from an R&D perspective, you're gonna have the drivetrain you want for the next few years. Whereas if you're looking to upgrade to that new transmission, which by the way, does have some merit. The other day I was riding with Nick and Steven, and I was a dum-dum and dropped my crux just from a standstill on the ground, and the derailleur still hasn't quite been shifting right. With UDH, you eliminate that derailleur hanger problem. So other than just being the hot newness, there is some durability improvements there. Anyway, I digress. UDH, non-UDH, yeah, but they look different. Oh yeah, and tire clearance too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this generation of the Checkpoint is rated for 45C, and that's 50. So more versatile. Both sweet bikes. I can see why this bike was so popular. It definitely has its own look. All right, so we have a visual here to show you to prove that it will in fact clear a 50 as stated. And I want to be very clear here. It looks like it can go bigger. Now, two things. If you live somewhere where it's wet and you get a lot of mud or debris, you may want to keep that in mind. But if you live somewhere dry like we do, I think you could go even a size bigger than this and still have maybe a little bit of clearance. 2.2, 2.3, I guess it depends on the WAM, the width as measured or whatever they call it. But that's reassuring to see that not only does it fit 50, it fits 50 pretty handily. That's a good, that's what I call comfort in room right there. That is enough where you're not stressing about something caking and sticking in there. So for all the Race King fans or anybody who wants to go into mountain bike territory, because it seems like gravel bike tires usually stop around 50 mil and then you start getting into mountain bike sizing, and so this is a 2.0. I'm wondering if the rear is the same, but it should be. Experience from the previous Checkpoint, do they keep the front? All right, so after looking at both close up, having a chat, yeah, completely different bikes. More on the pointy end of your flatter, punchier gravel race segment, and then this is more on your adventure. Again, I think adventure is kind of the most overly used term in gravel because it can mean so many things. Adventure could mean salsa cutthroat, which is giant tire clearance, very upright, tour divide, go out for weeks type of bike, whereas this is adventure, the Checkpoint, but you can also race, and I think where you live matters too. Nick and I were just chatting. This kind of reminds us of like a giant Revolt, especially the new one. Internal storage, non-proprietary parts, semi-integrated cables, storage compartment. This does have a threaded bottom bracket, which I know a lot of people prefer for creaking and all that. I was pleasantly surprised by this bike upon looking at it in person and picking it up. I thought it'd be maybe a little bit clunkier, a little bit more boaty, where, you know, this bike if you're trying to race Unbound, BWR San Diego, a course where you can expect a lot of tarmac, Ruby Roubaix if you live out near us, yeah, if money's not an object, this bike is a rocket, it looks like. But hey, now only one thing to do after gawking at these bikes, and that's ride them a little bit. Gentlemen at Trek are nice enough to let us give these first models in a little spin. All right, race one first. Yeah, that thing is stiff.
If I wanted a new road bike, this would be it.
That's how far we've come.
It's just as stiff as a road bike. You put the power down, you can feel the power go in it. It's extremely twitchy. It's real nimble. Yeah, that is, for somebody who wants like a full-blown race bike and really does a lot of road and gravel and light gravel, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
Weight claims seem true as well?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, that's a race bike, 100%.
I think, was it 17 and change for the Force build?
Yes. Yeah, and I think the red build is like 16 and some change.
That gives the S-Work Crux a run for its money.
Yeah, and it gives road bikes a run for its money.
It definitely gives road bikes. That's why I'm saying, like, right off the back, if I was, and that's just it, right? This is where the line gets blurred because they took so many integrations from the road series into this that now you officially have a legitimate, what could be a road bike that you could race on, but also will let you put the bigger tires in there. I'd stuff some 45s in there and ride the road all day on this.
Some Rene Hurst slicks.
Yeah, exactly. Rene Hurst slicks, 40s, 44s, and done deal. You're on and off road all day. I mean, you'll be able to stay in a bunch 20-mile-an-hour average, no problem on that, even with the 1x Explorer on there. Which you might want to go 42 or 44 up front, but other than that.
Which you mentioned is now 13 speed.
Yep.
And we think it has a bigger cassette, right? The new Explorer has a 1046.
Yep, it's a 46 on there.
Put a bigger road tire on there, but yet still ride light gravel. I'd have a hard time out here on this in our gravel though.
More on the gravel side of things. Checkmate was super stiff, straight line speed. This is a size I could ride, although maybe leaning towards a medium large, but we get a better representation of what it rides like at a size I could ride. This bike continues to impress. All right, so after riding the Checkmate and then onto this, still impressed. Obviously more of that relaxed endurance feel, more upright, but it wasn't that sluggish under load, under power. It got going pretty quick. Definitely felt that longer wheelbase, but it cornered pretty well. I keep making that Revolt comparison. I'm going to continue to do so. This feels like a little bit more aggressive than that. Obviously there's some things you can do with the stack height. Along with when I was impressed with the weight, I'm also impressed with the way it rides. I think if this was a medium large, I'd be walking inside and Nick would probably have to stop me from ordering one without thinking about it.
Do you feel like you could race that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, especially with, you know, we're gonna say West Coast gravel, which is its own thing entirely. I think with these rowdier courses, Rock Cobbler, Peter Setness Pater, any of the Bike Monkey events, anything where Jeep double track and single track are in the equation, and this thing, that's noticeable. That's very noticeable. I felt that. You can even see it, like me moving.
I could see it right here. Do that again.
That's noticeable. It's not as subtle as I thought. So if you want to balance out the equation, you can always get some aftermarket options, or even, I'm assuming this thing with the right angle could run a suspension fork Trek. I'm not quoting that for sure. I don't know that for sure, but there's ways to make this more compliant throughout if you so choose. Yeah, this is sweet. This is an endurance machine, especially if you get the size that you need. Obviously a quick parking lot test ride isn't going to tell the whole story, but I came into this with neutral expectations, and so far I'm pretty impressed.
The giant bars, what are these? 44s?
Probably 44s or 46s.
Oh my gosh, those are way too big. Definitely tell the fork's more raked and it's like feels longer.
Yeah,
you can definitely feel that it's longer, but yeah, it doesn't feel sluggish at all. It's pretty close to as nimble as that other thing. And we're talking about two different sizes too. So if you were to put me on the same thing, I'd be really curious to feel the difference. 100% could race on this. 100% throw some road tires on there. Great endurance bike. A lot of room for upgrades to make it lighter. That's pretty sweet, I'm not gonna lie. That the thing I would be curious about is this is size up, so there might be some toe rubbing with a 50 in there, which I don't mind, is not a big deal for me, but it is something to worth note that it is there. I could definitely tell there was more flex in the rear than the other one, than the Checkmate. This is what I think 90% gravel users need, something with bigger clearance. Yeah, I'm never really a fan of all the options for mounting things, because like tail fin, you can put anything on here without needing that. but I do like the idea that the fact that they took and made it the frame bag to bolt into the top on both bikes, and on both bikes you can run an option of 3 bottles because they have all the mounts. At the end of the day, that other bike's like really rad if you want a more road bike, race bike, and that's kind of your cup of tea. But if you're really more on the adventure side, racing a lot of gravel and doing different things like most people do on a gravel bike, this makes more sense.
Okay, so Nick and I were chatting some more. We're both of the same mind that it rides and looks better than we thought, and not in a bad way. It's just when something's new, you got to come into it at least neutral, maybe a little skeptical. This is more compliant than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be more subtle, but it's noticeable, but not so much to where it produces lag or that sluggish, sleepy feeling. But we thought that maybe because of how pronounced this is, Redshift makes the stem that could kind of add a more balanced suspension feel or something like that. And then if you go more racy on the bars, whether you're an aero bar fan and you want to go more flat top for the aero profile and a place to rest your hands, maybe more narrow if you want to get in a little bit tighter. This is a pretty standard bar size for the bike size, but you can make this front end racier is my point. By the way, something that you very rarely see, but it's a nice touch, Trek. Nice touch. Not only are these bolts good quality, they're color matched. They're color matched. That's a nice touch. That's just something where you take your bike out in the sun. And I know that on online people have been commenting about the colorway of this bike and these other models in the new 2025 stable. I don't know about you, this looks good in the sun. This is like a bronzish, almost like a maroon tint, or maybe I'm colorblind, but it looks good. And then you can see some of the naked carbon underneath. And then I'm a sucker for purple, so of course I'm gonna love that, but you can see all the little speckling. In the sun, this bike is a shower for sure. It doesn't do it justice to look at it inside. If you're looking for something to train endurance with and race gravel and still push the adventure side of things, this should be on your short list, I think.
Worth noting though, the only thing it's missing is that eagle. Why is there no eagle on here? If this is your adventure bike, even what I ride and some of the races out here, I'm sorry, SRAM Explorer 44 is not gonna cut it.
Now, if I were to buy this bike, which again, Nick might have to at least make me think about it before pulling the trigger. If I were to do this, as tempting as it is to buy the whole package, Trek does Project One, which allows you to customize all of your setup, even including crank length and things like that, which is important, which are often overlooked. But you could do this exact frame color, and then you can piece together your transmission or first gen Eagle or whatever you want to do. So that's how I would do it. I'd order this in my size and just do everything piece by piece.
I gotta say massive shout out to Jeremy, the manager over here at Trek Reno, Mike, who works there as well. Super awesome guys, super knowledgeable. This is our new shop here in Reno, so if you're looking for anything Trek wise, need some maintenance, things like that, any information, new bikes like they just showed us, man, I cannot recommend the shop more. That was an excellent experience as a cyclist that's been to a lot of different shops and dealt with a lot of different bike shops, managers, mechanics, things like that. Top notch. I appreciate you guys. Link down below to their shop and their address and all that fun stuff. Massive thank you guys. Jeremy, legend. All right, Eric, first impressions, final thoughts, anything you want to add?
First off, thanks to Nick as always for letting me tag along in these videos. Hit him up when I found out one of my good buddies was shopping for a Checkmate. I was like, hey, Trek Reno has a Checkmate and a Checkpoint, and they're fresh off the factory, you know, they just arrived. As a matter of fact, the Checkpoint's not even for sale, it's going to a magazine editor for a review, so very stoked we were able to get in. Overall, I would say keyword impressed. You know, Nick and I are always talking shop about new gravel models. Nick has arguably the best gravel bike on the market, the Lauf Segla, and we're always looking for what measures up to it. You know, is the market behind? Is it you know, keeping up? And we were happy to look at these bikes. Completely different bikes. For where we live, obviously we prefer the Checkpoint because it checks those boxes, but you know, no pun intended, but they're both sweet and better than expected, I'd say. And now I got to keep myself from clicking buy on the Checkpoints. So sweet stuff.
Final first thoughts on those two bikes. Checkmate, I mean, that is absolutely a rad race bike. It's one of those bikes like I've talked about. It's fun for about an hour. And then probably after that, it's not very endurance wise, right? I think it's super rad, but yeah, the Checkmate is just, they did a really good job on it. It's super snappy, super racy, that's cool. I was definitely more impressed with the Checkpoint. It looks like it's big and bulky and heavy. It's got a big wide fork on it. Not the case at all. And I'm comparing it to a Trek Checkpoint that is like a really comfy endurance bike and kind of sleepy. That thing is way more snappy than a Trek Checkpoint. It is definitely, it feels lighter. Spec wise, it doesn't say it's any lighter, but it feels lighter. So I was blown away. If they would have cleared a 57 on that bike, that thing would fly off the shelves. That would be my only complaint. Otherwise, they did a really good job on that Checkpoint, and first impressions, I was actually surprised at 2 frame sizes probably bigger than what I need, how well it maneuvered. Yeah, pretty rad to check out a couple new bikes. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you guys got any questions, drop them down below. I know this was a little bit random and something different, but we had a chance to check out a couple new bikes, and I'm always curious where gravel's going because I think bigger is better, and that's where eventually we're gonna go. So it's just fun seeing new stuff. All right, see y'all next time.